Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Dr. Skinner, and welcome to Chapter 4 of the Admin of IS class. Today's class, we're going to be looking at enabling business to consumer electronic commerce. We have 5 learning objectives today. First one, describe different approaches to competing in cyberspace, as well as different forms of electronic government and e-finance. Secondly, describe business to consumer electronic commerce strategies. Thirdly, understand the keys to successful electronic commerce websites and explain the different forms of internet marketing. Then describe mobile commerce, consumer to consumer electronic commerce, and consumer to business electronic commerce. And then finally, describe how to conduct financial transactions and navigate the legal issues of electronic commerce. So let's crack on without any further ado to our very first learning objective. Describe different approaches to competing in cyberspace, as well as different forms of electronic government and e-finance. So, electronic commerce. Electronic commerce occurs when any aspect of the transaction is facilitated by electronic communication technologies. We typically think of the internet, which is where the vast majority of electronic commerce takes place, as the source of it. Okay, so on the internet, exchanges can involve consumers, businesses, the government, where any of these can be the buyer, the seller, or both. Okay, so we have different types. We can have consumer, businesses, and government. Okay, I think it's important that we have a definition of e-commerce, and here we have it on our next screen. So this is the exchange of goods, services, and money among firms, between firms and their customers, and between customers supported by communication technologies, and in particular, the internet. Interestingly, just going to give you some figures to support all this. US annual retail sales in 2015 was up by 1.5% in 2014. US online retail sales in 2015 was up approximately 15% on 2014. So electronic commerce was 7.2% of total retail sales at around $340 odd billion. And this was 5 years ago. So we're looking at significant numbers. Okay. So we touched on different types of electronic commerce. Let's look at these in the this slide. So there are many types based on who is interacting with or selling to whom. So the top one, business to consumer, is businesses selling to consumers. Consumer to business is consumers selling to businesses. Okay. As a consumer, you will mostly make use of B2C, or business to consumer. Perhaps you can also use eBay to auction off items you no longer need, which is a form of consumer to consumer, or C2C. Has anyone ever sold something to a business? Consumer to business? So the point I'm trying to make with this slide is everything goes much further than consumers buying and selling products online. Do you remember previously we talked about the megatrends, the 5 megatrends: social, cloud computing, Internet of Things, mobile and big data? Well, this obviously has an influence on e-commerce as well. So things like social commerce, this kind of building up customer relationships through the use of social media, cloud computing, like iTunes and Internet of Things and Nest, and so on and so forth. We can also have mobile or m-commerce. So there are many different types of e-commerce, and this example in the private sector. Okay. The largest of these is business to business, or B2B, the largest form of e-commerce. So that was worth $3.6 trillion in 2014, a little while ago, but it gives you some idea. We also have, outside of this, something called e-government. So governments use e-government to increase efficiency and effectiveness, much like businesses do. So by reducing paperwork and allowing for the electronic dissemination of information and the automated processing of transactions, governments can significantly reduce operating costs whilst increasing services. So what do I mean by e-government? This is the use of information systems to provide citizens, organizations, and other governmental agencies with information about things like public services, and to allow for interaction with the government. So examples of this might include things like the electronic filing of income tax returns, the online filing of business license applications, or the ability to share data electronically between different law enforcement agencies. Okay, so government assistance, e-filing of tax, government to business, things like procuring materials from suppliers, or giving out export licenses. Government to government, example might be things like foreign trade. So it doesn't have to be within one government. It could be one government talking to another government. We also have this thing called e-finance. So e-finance, what does it say? The use of information systems to provide financial services and market. That's our definition. So we have e-banking and online brokerage. So things like mobile banking apps, paying bills online using electronic bill pay, which is something I do, and I hate the amount of money I pay online all the time. What does it say here? People can turn to multiple sites to get the latest information about stock prices as well. You can deposit in checks. FinTech, or financial technology, the technologies that support activities in the financial sector. The one you've probably seen the most is something like Square, where you can swipe a credit card to make a payment for something that you are purchasing in a shop, for instance. And we have things like digital technology disrupting the finance industry, just like that. So it's very important that we have an understanding, and we appreciate we also have e-finance as well. Our second learning objective is describe business to consumer electronic commerce strategies. And there are different ways to look at this, but essentially we're going to look at this in both comparing the physical and the virtual worlds. I'm going to introduce you to something called e-tailing, and we're going to have a look at the differences therein. The first thing we're going to start with is business strategies. So in the same way we've looked at business strategies previously, just generically in the sense of the corporate world, we have e-commerce business strategies that we also need to be aware of. Okay, and we're going to look at the differences in those right now. So companies can ignore e-commerce and they can sell through physical outlets. Okay, they can be virtual companies that only sell through online storefronts, or they can combine them using something what we call a click and mortar approach that allows both online transactions and physical store sales. Okay, so you can have just e-commerce, so just online, you can have just physical, so no online presence, or you can have a blend, and that's be click and mortar. So brick and mortar, click and mortar, or click only. And where you are depends on how much physical you are or how virtual you are. The physical store-only company has a limited product reach as well as limited sales and support hours. Okay, so physical, limited product reach, limited sales and support hours. The online company can sell anywhere in the world 24/7. But customers must wait for their product to be shipped, and some products require physical inspection and testing to verify suitability. The click and mortar, which is obviously a play on brick and mortar from the physical, the click and mortar stores, they try to combine the best of both worlds. But retailers must overcome the pricing differences inherent between online and physical locations, as well as the complexity of having two sales channels. So this is what we call a bricks and clicks business strategy. Bricks and clicks business strategy. The ability to match both the physical and the virtual and take the benefits of both. So these are different business strategies that we can be aware of. One thing we are also aware of is this thing called e-tailing. Okay, so e-tailing. So powerful web technologies have given rise to a global platform where firms from across the world can effectively compete for customers and gain access to new markets. Okay? Websites that are linked to corporate databases provide real-time access to personalized information. We have this term called disintermediation, which is what it says there, cutting out the middleman and reaching customers more directly and efficiently. Okay, so you might think about airlines. Airlines have follow the line of disintermediation. I can't say it properly. Disintermediation. There we go. Where they cut out travel agents. When I was your age, back in the day, which was far too long ago, you had to go to a travel agent in the high street before the internet. If you want to go on holiday, you had to buy your airline tickets and so on and so forth. But now, of course, you can just use technology and buy them all yourselves. And you cut out the middleman. So you're being more efficient, you're cutting costs, but you also need to deal with upset customers. So airlines now have to deal with that. You can have the opposite of that, which is called re-intermediation. So things like Travelocity.com, where you can check all the airline websites and they'll get you the best deal. Okay, so disintermediation or re-intermediation is either cutting out the middleman and reaching customers more directly and efficiently versus getting involved again and checking all airline websites to be get better deals for your potential clients. We have this thing called the long tail. What it says, it refers to the ability to cater to niche markets instead of selling mainstream products. So for instance, Netflix can have a very large selection of rather unpopular movies and they can make a profit. Okay, so they can drop the cost for storage. They can have, instead of just going mainstream, they recognize that there's a market for the less mainstream. Okay, so it's almost looking at how many deviations from a mean, from a standard deviation, right? So if you're out there just 2 or 3 standard deviations, the movies that are not mainstream but people still watch, if you can store them and give them access to them for a low cost, then there is that ability to cater to niche markets instead of just going mainstream. We also have another opportunity, it's this mass customization, where, what does it say? Firms can tailor their products and services to meet a customer's particular needs. We think about someone like Dell. So Dell allows customers to customize their computers based on their specific needs. Okay, so you have a general product, but you can even then, when you have a mass product, you can still have this mass customization based on your own requirements. Okay, so we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail in a couple of slides, but things like, I don't know, personalized tennis shoes at Nike and so on and so forth. We also have group buying. Okay, so if enough people agree to purchase the product or service, then they can get significant discounts. And the example of that is something like Groupon, okay, where you go reduce unsold inventory and get new customers in the door, increase demand, you take 50%, that is another opportunity. What else? New revenue and pricing models. So the web's opened new avenues for communication between companies and their customers. So we've got web-based support, electronic mail, online text or video chat applications, and social media. Okay, facilitating all stages of a transaction, allowing companies to conduct business online without human assistance, greatly reducing transaction costs while enhancing operational efficiencies. So companies can earn revenues not only through traditional sales, but also through subscription, licensing, or transaction fees. And we looked at that, remember, back in chapter 2, and we'll look at it again in a couple of slides' times. Companies and individuals can earn money through web advertising, affiliate marketing. We talked about that as well, something like Priceline. We also have this social commerce perspective, where we're using social networks to build lasting relationships and advertise products. So Amazon recommendations based on what other shoppers have used or purchased, and encourage shoppers to share their recent purchases on social networking sites, and so on and so forth. Just want to touch on the mass customization that we talked about here at the bottom of the slide again. So mass customization generates additional value for customers and profits for producers. So mass customization, which caters to individualized customer preferences while maintaining economies of scale. It helps firms tailor their products and services to meet a customer's particular needs on a large scale. So linking online product configuration systems with just-in-time production allows companies to assemble each individual product based on the customer's specifications. So Dell and Nike, as I said already, are 2 examples of firms that have successfully implemented mass customization into their e-commerce strategy. So new revenue and pricing models as a result. So we talked about, I mentioned just now, Priceline. So Priceline.com lets consumers name their own price for travel-related services. So customers specify the product they're looking for and how much they're willing to pay for it, and Priceline.com matches the customer's bids with offers from companies like airlines, hotels, and car rental agencies. And it's a win-win because it helps these companies get rid of excess inventory. So everyone's a winner, okay? And it is great. It's kind of this reverse pricing. You get what you want as a consumer, you get it at the price you want, and the people who have overstocked whatever it is, even if it's hotel rooms or cars or seats, they can get rid of them because they wouldn't get any value for them otherwise. Just going back to e-tailing, so the tailing, when you kind of look at the less popular items and you determine there's a market for it, there are benefits to e-tailing. So when companies are selling online, they can take advantage of the elimination of the retail market space, so they can sell a much wider variety of products, targeting unique market segments on a global basis and undercutting competitors' pricing. So you think about people like Amazon.com versus traditional bookstore. So you don't have store size, you don't have shelf space restrictions, you can therefore sell a much wider variety of goods. Okay, you have storefronts across the internet. All right, so it's all about efficiency, high volumes, low overhead, competitive pricing. But there are drawbacks to e-tailing as well, certainly for certain product and service types. And one of the greatest problems is with trust, because it can become an issue due to customers' inability to adequately experience the capabilities and characteristics of a product prior to purchase, as well as due to uncertainties surrounding product delivery and returns. So you lose out on this thing like touch and feel and taste, smell and feel, and so on and so forth. And I don't know about you, but I actually quite like the social aspects of going out shopping. You know, we all go out on a Saturday, go to the mall and so on and so forth. Okay, so drawbacks of e-tailing: trust, this especially says on the screen, especially a concern for new online businesses without a proven track record. You don't have that sensory touch and feel, and returns and delivery, you have to wait. It takes a long time. It can be a hassle rather than just returning stuff to a store. So the next question we need to ask ourselves is, when it comes to an electronic commerce and websites, what makes electronic commerce and websites successful? Well, what is the key to successful electronic commerce websites? And we can talk about the different forms of internet marketing. Well, the first thing we need to talk about is design. Designing websites to meet online consumer needs. And we're going to see that there are three different hierarchy of needs that you need to think about when you're designing a website for e-commerce. So in order of importance, we have structural firmness, functional convenience, and representational delight. Okay. What do we mean by structural firmness? So what does it say? No bad links, understandable error messages, privacy, security, and speed. So these are characteristics that influence the website's security and performance. That's most important. The next one is this functional convenience: ease of use, simple navigation, user feedback, help features, on-click ordering, flexible payment, order tracking. So these are the characteristics that make the interaction with the website easier or more convenient. Okay, and then lastly, representational delight: aesthetically pleasing, professional look and feel, color, font, images, consistent layout, no clutter. These are the characteristics that stimulate a consumer's senses. So successful companies design their websites to enhance their online customers' experiences when interacting with the website. The site has to work correctly, be easy to use, and to look good. So it has to have structural firmness, functional convenience, and representational delight. So there is a hierarchy of these needs. Most important, as I said, is structural firmness, followed by functional convenience, and finally, representational delight. Okay, we have to have this hedonic feeling, right? So that's relating to a pleasant sensation, and that's what it's all about when it comes to representational design. Different types of website focus on different design features. So we need to think about different types of website whether they're utilitarian web page, a hybrid web page, or a hedonic web page. Remember, hedonic means relating to a pleasant sensation. So if I think about a utilitarian web page, so something like a login page for a bank, all right? So it's going to have very high levels of structural firmness, okay? Very high levels of structural firmness. You've got to have that influence of the website security and performance. So you've got to mirror the feeling you have when you're interacting with the bank, which is where your money is stored, right? You've got to have functional convenience. So it's got to be easy, it's got to be convenient. And your less important factor is, of course, your representational delight. That's going to stimulate your senses. It's going to be pleasing, professional look, and so on and so forth. It's important, but of course, the most important thing is for its structural firmness. If I then go to a hybrid web page, so something like Amazon, everything's going to be pretty much the same, be it structural firmness, functional convenience, or representational delight. I then go to hedonic web page, so something like if I want to engage a visitor in considering a home loan, for instance, I'm going to really focus on my representational delight, and the least important will be my structural firmness. So everybody needs to get past this. Everybody needs to understand this. You cannot neglect other factors. It's all very, very important, but these are the 5 main things. But there's a context, so you need to be aware of the context. We also need to think about marketing. And on the marketing perspective, we need to think about it in the context of the internet. Okay. So historically, companies' advertising budgets were mostly spent on non-interactive advertising campaigns, such as billboards or newspaper or radio or television ads. However, by about 2013, 2014, 42% of US online adults were accessing the internet multiple times a day from multiple devices and locations. In response to these changes, companies are reallocating their advertising budgets. So in 2014, organizations spent 24% of their advertising budgets on internet marketing. Research firm Forrester estimated that in 2019, companies spend 75% of their advertising budgets on internet marketing, including search marketing, display ads, email marketing, social media, and mobile marketing as well. It says 35%. Sorry, I meant 35%, not 75%. That's 35%. So it's search marketing is the biggest percentage of internet marketing, and you can see it there. So I apologize, I meant 35%, not 75%. We also need to think about, in this context, search engine optimization, or SEO. Okay, so it's hard to influence the ranking of your company's page in the organic search results. All right, so you can't just hope that people are going to find you. Users will typically only click on the first few items of their search. And search engines' algorithms are usually proprietary and are frequently changed, and there can be hundreds of factors influencing a page's rank. They also check for cheating, such as hidden keywords. Okay, so SEO, or search engine optimization, and there are some courses on this that you can take here at school, attempts to improve a page's ranking in search engines like Google. So techniques include having other pages linked to the page, keeping content updated, including keywords, and so on and so forth. Exact formula are trade secrets, but there are algorithms to do that. You can also do a paid search, all right? So it's not unusual for businesses to pay for placement of online advertising, resulting in premium positions in search engines. But it's only beneficial if that placement converts into sales. So Forrester Research estimates that spending on paid search will be, or was, going to be about $41.3 billion last year. That's a lot of money. Things like Google AdWords, which is a company can bid for being listed in the sponsored search results, and so on and so forth. I've been through this myself. So I'm the program director for the MS in MIS here at Bauer, and we've been redesigning our pages and redoing our marketing campaigns to attract more potential graduates. And actually, we've had an increase of 184% in 1 year based on changes in the way we're marketing ourselves online. Okay, so paid search as a way to ensure your company's page appears on the first page users see. Page inclusion, where some search engines offer to elevate a page's position after paying a fee, and Google is on a pay-per-click basis, which can become very, very expensive. So now we go on to our fourth objective, talking about mobile commerce, C2C, EC, and C2B, EC. We'll look at these in turn, beginning with mobile commerce. Okay, what do we mean by mobile commerce? So mobile commerce has seen tremendous growth in the last few years. Mobile commerce is any electronic transaction or information interaction conducted using a wireless mobile device and mobile networks. Okay, so powerful mobile devices such as the iPhone, iPad, or Samsung's Galaxy support high-speed data transfer and always-on connectivity. The increasing use of tablets is seen as a major driver of mobile commerce as well. So we have in the context of mobile e-commerce, we have location-based m-commerce, where services can be offered tailored to a person's needs based on their current location. So it's all implemented via cellular, Bluetooth, and GPS. So for instance, you might be somewhere and you'll get advertised with restaurants where you are. The restaurants will start being offered to you based on your physical location. Information on the go, what does it say? Customers can get further information about a product wherever they are, including in the store, but then this can lead to showrooming. Okay, so I do showrooming, which is a terrible thing to say. When you go to Best Buy and you go on there and you look for the product, you check it out and you make a decision, and then you can scan, Amazon allows you to scan the barcode, and you can get an idea of how much the price they are charging for Amazon versus what it's going to be charged in Best Buy, and you can make sure you're getting the best price. So wherever they are, whenever they are, they can get information on the go. And also they can use mobile apps to make purchases while on the go versus things like a mobile web page. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Okay. We also have scalability and scalable products and content scale. So scalability is an important consideration when creating apps for your business. Being able to run the same basic app on a PC, on a tablet, on your cell phone gives your customers options for shopping on your site. Okay, this is all in the context of C2C electronic commerce. C2C is, one second. So just, sorry about that, just moving forward on the consumer to consumer e-commerce approach. So consumer to consumer, when a consumer sells to another consumer online, okay, it's a very open medium of exchange. So it provides lots of opportunities, but it also provides threats as well. And we need to be aware of them, okay? So opportunities for a consumer to sell to another consumer. You can sell to lots of markets, you get rid of the middleman, you drop your costs, it's available 24/7, 365. It's very efficient. You get a larger number of buyers and sellers who can interact with each other. But of course, there's no quality control. The risk of fraud is higher. It's more difficult or more challenging to use traditional payment methods. So electronically facilitated interactions for C2C create these unique opportunities, but also unique problems. So two of the most popular mechanisms consumers use to buy, sell, and trade with consumers are, of course, e-auctions and online classified. So consumer-consumer e-commerce allow consumers to achieve a fair price for goods, which they otherwise might not be able to achieve. E-auctions allow consumers to sell rare and unusual items to a world market. Online classified allow consumers to sell and search for products locally, reaching a wider audience, but still facilitating what is often a local face-to-face transaction. There is, of course, with online classifieds, a considerable danger of fraud. Okay, e-auctions, eBay.com holds the record for that one. That's the most widely popular one. 2015 eBay net revenues, $8.5 billion. So it's a very efficient process for C2C to take place. We also have consumer to business, which is kind of rarer. It's a relatively new phenomenon. This involves consumers selling what is typically small slices of work to businesses. Okay, a good example is businesses that buy photos from amateur photographers to sell online to interested parties. So each photo is a small piece of work, but when they sell, the photographer gets a small commission. So Shutterstock is an example. So beforehand, Getty Images was the primary source for things like stock photography for advertisers and similar, but it was expensive. So now Shutterstock is allowing people, individuals, to upload their photos, and if they get sold, then they make money out of it. So financial transactions and legal issues are all the things we need to think about in the context of this class. So let's talk about how to conduct financial transactions and navigate the legal issues of electronic commerce as well. Okay. So the first thing we need to think about is securing payments in the digital world. So online payments are readily made using credit cards, which offer consumers some protection against fraud by the seller, which typically still requires a significant amount of personal information to complete the sale. At the same time, the merchant is at significant risk of fraud from buyers. And unlike card present sales from traditional stores, when a sale is made online, the merchant is financially liable if the sale is fraudulent. So merchants now employ additional safeguards to flag and reject sales that have warning signs indicating that they may not be legitimate. So the issues relate to different forms, as you see on the screen. Payment services. So we're going to use independent payment services such as PayPal and Google Wallet. Cryptocurrencies, okay? Involves the use of non-banking currencies such as Bitcoin. We'll look at that very shortly. And then managing risk. Businesses are financially liable for fraudulent transactions. They have to look for these and have to reject sometimes these risky transactions. Let's just touch on Bitcoins. Bitcoins are a virtual currency that exists in the technology world. You've probably heard of them. You may not know how they work. So unlike credit cards and payment services like PayPal, where fees are added, Bitcoins have no extra charges. Bitcoins are like cash payments in that they are anonymous, okay? So when paying for something using Bitcoin, the transaction is broadcast within a Bitcoin network. So the transaction itself is stored on a secure public ledger that is accessible to any computer that wants to verify it. The authenticity of each transaction is ensured by digital signatures that correspond to the sending address of the payer and payee, and encryption ensures anonymity. The public ledger is constantly verified and maintained by the Bitcoin network. So the public ledger is this thing which you've probably heard of, is a blockchain, which is an indelible, decentralized repository to which transactions are added in blocks. So this ledger is decentralized, and that's essentially what we're seeing on that screen. So the question now becomes, how can you, as a consumer, protect yourself when shopping online? And here are some kind of pretty common sense recommendations. So for instance, make sure that your browser has the latest encryption capabilities. Always look for the padlock icon in your browser status bar before transmitting sensitive information. Make sure the company you're about to do business with does not share information you prefer not to be shared. Make sure that you can return unwanted or defective products for a refund. Make sure that you don't give out information such as your social security number unless you know what the other entity is going to do with it. Make sure that you don't provide your payment information to fly-by-night operations. Make sure you don't miss important information about your purchases. Make sure to check for any erroneous or unauthorized transactions and all the things that you see on the screen. So what are the possible indicators of fraud? What are the things that we might think about to look for when it comes to there being problems with our e-commerce transaction? So in any e-commerce transaction, there is no imprint of a physical card and there's no cardholder signature. So online merchants have to be especially careful when deciding whether or not to make a transaction. Online merchants often use automated fraud screening services that provide the merchants with a risk score based on a number of variables such as match between shipping address, billing address, and phone number. Also the time of the order and the customer's time zone, the transaction volume, and the customer's IP address and its geographical location. Okay, so here we see examples of things that might lead you to think that there was a possible fraud taking place. So transaction histories are changing, the billing address is changed to the shipping address, the email address being used is not linked to anywhere. It looks a bit of a dodgy one. The shipping address is a hotel. The IP address is in Romania. You can see nothing that I've got, nothing against Romanians, but you see the kind of the point that we're trying to make. The last thing I just want to touch on are the legal issues involved in e-commerce. So things like sales tax from a taxation perspective. Sales taxes have historically not been levied on companies selling to consumers in different states. So e-commerce both reduces state sales tax revenues and makes local business less competitive as compared to out-of-state online retailers. Okay, so company also says company only has to collect sales taxes only from customers residing in a state where the business has a substantial presence. Okay, so the Internet Freedom Act and internet sales are treated like a mail order sales. Digital rights management, or DRM, includes practices to limit the copying and distribution of digital goods to paying customers, things like a digital watermark. So you're trying to prevent unauthorized duplication, you're stopping which devices can play media, and so on and so forth. And that question at the bottom, should the internet be open or should the internet access come first, the highest bidder? It's still a hot topic. And I've been discussing this in classes now for going on for 6-7 years. And we're still no further closer to getting a common consensus about net neutrality. And there are always people trying to claim that the net should not be neutral, that it should be controlled. But then the question becomes, who controls and who is in charge? Okay, well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that chapter, a relatively short chapter on e-commerce. Here are your group assignments for chapter 4. So group 1 and 3 will do the ethical dilemma, the ethics of reputation management on page 150 of the textbook. Answer questions 1 and 3, so don't do 2. Groups 2 and 4 will do case 1, web analytics on page 177, questions 441 and 442 only. And then groups 5 and 6 will do case 2, rocket internet on page 178. Answer questions 443 and 445 only. Don't do 444. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing your presentations in the future. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.